After the fall of apartheid, the United States and Great Britain pressured South Africa to destroy Project Coast documents and bioweapons. Basson claims these legacy stocks were disposed of far out at sea.
I have no idea where it happened. I was sitting in the back of the aeroplane. The pilot should know where he went. I don't know. And at a specific time, he opened the doors and we dumped the stuff out and went back home.
A classified report prepared for President Mandela by South Africa's military confirms Project Coast's stockpiles had all been destroyed. But had they? After the anthrax attacks, the FBI interviewed Basson.
The FBI wanted to know how we'd managed and controlled and kept the program and the equipment and the products closed down. And I was very clear with them, and I said, look, there was never any official attempt to deploy or disperse any of this technology and or chemicals and or product through into the world. Definitely not into any unsavory hands. But as in any program, you have one or two guys who take out insurance policies, as they call it, and they hide things, hide a document, hide a product. And you can have the best control mechanism in the world, but the guy steals 1 gram of an anthrax isolate and he walks out the door with it. You can't strip search him every time he goes in and out, and he's a senior scientist.
Despite his failing health, Private Eye Dresch kept working his sources. He uncovered a scheme hatched only months after the U.S. letter attacks that seemed to confirm Basson's theory. A former Project Coast senior scientist, Dan Husson, was offering to sell anthrax and other lethal organisms to Washington.
Husson still had control over the cache. No one else had found it. He had it well hidden. And the South African government had backed off and wasn't doing anything. So it's still there to be retrieved.
Husson agreed to meet, but said it was too dangerous to explain why the deal with Washington fell through, or to reveal what had become of the missing stocks of germs. Cohen was going deeper into an underground universe with dead scientists, ethnic weapons, and missing anthrax. It all seemed to converge with the 2001 letter attacks. Would the answers be found where we started, with the U.S. biodefense program? The exploration into the United States anthrax attacks had gone from the United Kingdom to the edge of Siberia to the tip of Africa. The investigation had revealed the threat posed by state biological research. Now it was time to take a deeper look into the U.S. biodefense program. In the wake of the anthrax letters, an important lead seems to have been overlooked. The Baltimore Sun reported U.S. Army scientists in Utah had been making weapons-grade anthrax and shipping it to Fort Detrick. The anthrax spores were virtually identical to those mailed to Congress.
One of the amazing things about this is there's plenty of country out there to keep a secret in.
For decades, the vast Dugway Proving Ground has been the main site of biological and chemical weapons testing. It lies hidden in the Great Salt Lake Desert, in one of the most remote parts of the American Southwest. Steve Erickson, a social justice activist, has been monitoring Dugway for more than a decade.
If we were to embark upon an offensive program again, like we did once, this is where it would begin. We were suspicious all along that the quality of anthrax, the AIM strain, pointed a finger towards our own defense establishment, and hence Dugway, where we know that they've aerosolized these materials, and outside of perhaps Fort Detrick in Maryland, the most expertise in working with anthrax. So we do believe that it was highly likely that the anthrax was milled here at Dugway shipped back to Dietrich, and maybe some of it got diverted along the way and wound up in the envelopes.
Dr. Alan Jeff Moore is chief of the biological division at Dugway.
So these are biosafety level 3 labs. If you look up at those cameras on the left-hand side there, there's a hallway that runs parallel to this one, and everything behind this reinforced concrete wall is biosafety level 3, and has, you know, restricted admittance to there, and you have to be on a list that says you have authorization to go into that laboratory.
So we're not going in there?
No. I don't think you guys are on that list.
Okay.
Just so happens 1 micron is an ideal size for a particle to be breathed down in the alveoli of your lung. So the select agents, the biological warfare agents that we work with, are 1 micron long, because physically it's the right size for people to breathe in. And the bottom line for biological warfare agent is how effectively is it breathed into your system, and is it infectious and pathogenic to your system.
Apparently the anthrax attacks, that was pretty sophisticated anthrax. It was pretty small.
It was milled down to 1 micron single spores. Yes, it was.
That's why it was so dangerous, right?
That's one of the reasons it was so dangerous. There's actually a bunch of us here that worked with the FBI on Amerithrax. So we know all of the ins and outs, and we have to be careful what we say about that, because we signed statements saying that we wouldn't talk about exactly what that anthrax looked like. But this laboratory does make weaponized anthrax.
There were other labs in the U.S. besides Dugway that had been weaponizing anthrax, but this hadn't been publicized.
I'm always worried about what we don't know. In an area that is so inherently secret and secretive, and work that is so politically sensitive, potentially diplomatically explosive.
One week before 9/11, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, Judith Miller, and 2 New York Times colleagues broke a front-page story revealing the U.S. had been weaponizing anthrax as part of several secret programs. One such program, Project Jefferson, involved the CIA and Battelle, a private national security lab that sought to engineer a potent new anthrax weapon.
The Battelle lab was a contractor on Project Jefferson, and what they were trying to do was to, once again, figure out whether or not the Soviets had combined 2 agents to make an anthrax that would resist our vaccine. And so for many years they struggled to do this at this top secret laboratory on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio.
Miller revealed that private contractors were capable of weaponizing anthrax. But her report had been overshadowed by 9/11 and the anthrax attacks. 7 years later, one target of the anthrax letters was demanding answers from the FBI.
These weapons that were used against the American people, and they're weapons. They're weapons. The weapons that were used against the American people and Congress. Are you aware of any facility in the United States that is capable of making the weapons that were used on Congress and the American people besides Dugway Proving Ground, Utah, and the Battelle facility in West Jefferson, Ohio?
I do believe there are others.
Because I know of none besides Dugway and Battelle. But when we have a break, double check that.
With regard to the 2 laboratories that you mentioned, and were there any other laboratories that had the capability of weaponizing anthrax, I respectfully ask that we provide that in a closed session. Aspects of the response to that question may well be classified.
The FBI director wasn't ruling out that other labs might be weaponizing anthrax. In fact, since the letter attacks, hundreds of labs are now registered to work with anthrax as part of U.S.